Mitchell, South Dakota, home to the world's only corn palace. Murals made out of corn cobs, rye, sourdough, many staples, and over a ton of nails surround the outside of the building. But why a corn palace? The idea came after a town 20 miles to the west, Plankinton, had built a grain palace. The corn palace idea went bankrupt and failed after 5 years in Sioux City, Iowa. Two 19th century businessmen decided to try one in Mitchell. Shortly after, a corn palace stood on 4th and Main. A new building was built in 1905, while the current building was established in 1921. The murals on the outside of the building are changed every year, based on a theme chosen by a committee.
We have a committee that's made up of 3 staff members and 7 community members. And we get together and kind of go through different ideas to try and select a theme. It might be community involvement that they come forward, others come forward and say, well, it's a 40th anniversary of the local rodeo, or it's the 125th anniversary of Dakota Wesleyan University, or whatever it might be, and giving us ideas of what tourists might like to see as well, what the community would like to see. And then the committee just weighs out different options and selects a theme, and then starts working on what ideas would go with that theme. How could you put 12 panels that people would want to travel all over the United States to come and see the building, because we can't put pictures of just old buildings on that are not recognizable to people, because they would look at it and say, what is that? Where we have to try and keep a fresh idea and kind of true to our roots here in South Dakota as well, saying life on the farm or American heroes or different things like that.
There have only been a few years the murals were not able to be redecorated. The most recent was in 2007 after a drought limited corn throughout the Midwest.
It's a tough decision. We had the designs ready to go. As the year progressed, a little bit by a little bit, we kept getting, well, if we don't get rain by this date, we're going to have to seriously consider it. Well, we've just thought it's going to rain sometime. And gradually we started looking at it more and let people in the community know, or city leaders know, there may not be corn. It's not like we can go to somebody else and say, we want to buy X number of bushels of brown corn. Do you have it? Because like I said earlier, we need fresh corn, because others are way too dry and it just shells and you'd have to soak it for a long time to try and use. But that year when we finally did go back out the fields, that last time we walked through the fields and saw there were very, very few usable ears. We might have had a couple colors that were in different areas that might have given us a little bit, but we just decided, based on the fact there wasn't enough to do everything, that we were better off just leaving our previous year's product on there and go with it from there.
And when you look at the changes made over a period of time, and then all of a sudden you don't have corn to put on, you say, oh, how are we going to do this? And what are the tourists going to think? That's the first thing that comes to my mind. What are the tourists going to think? We've got the same panels up there, murals up there, and you got people coming back and not seeing something different. That bothers you. And the construction phase that happens here in the Corn Palace, it's disappointing. But nevertheless, nature is what it is, and you have to deal with it. But
today, the Corn Palace is home to many events, including the Corn Palace Festival, banquets, proms, dances, and much more. The Dakota Wesleyan University basketball team calls it home, as well as the Mitchell High School Kernels. The Corn Palace was named one of the top 10 places in the country to play high school basketball. The Corn Palace is visited by 500,000 tourists each year, and in 2008 alone, the attraction helped bring $30 million to the city.
It puts us on the map. The Corn Palace, the name is more well known than Mitchell. And that's a good thing. It's our product. It's what we have. That's why we have, in my opinion, that's why we have 1,000 rooms in town. You know, you can go down the road a ways and you don't have 1,000 rooms unless there's 250,000 people. You know, we're a small town with a lot of rooms. in my opinion, because of the Corn Palace.
The product used on the Corn Palace murals is grown by Wade Strand. The corn must be hand-picked to be used for the mural.
He's hired to grow the rye, some grasses that we use, and the corn that we would use. And it's a difficult task. It's a time-consuming and tedious task because with the 13 different colors that we use, every color needs to be planted in its own separate field. Now, we don't need a 100-acre field, and it doesn't work real well to go out there with a 12-row planter to plant this. So you're using a 4-row planter, and you need maybe a 3 to 4 acre field to plant some red in, because that's what you want. And then you have to go about 1/8 of a mile away and put a buffer crop in between there so that the colors don't cross-pollinate. They're all in Indian corn or Native American corn, and you don't want the whites to be cross-pollinating with the reds, or the blues and the reds to cross, because all of our ears we want to be solid colors and in our 13 naturally grown colors, rather than to have multicolored ears like you would see on your Thanksgiving table or using for decoration in the home. So it's a big task for him to do, because he's got to find all these small little plots to do a little bit here and another color there.
Local artists are used to design the murals. World-famous artist Oscar Howe designed the murals from 1948 to 1971. The current artist, Sherry Ramsdale, took over in 2003. The redecoration process begins in June with the removal and replacing of the dock and rye. The corn is put in place when it is ready in August.
We try to do it about our festival time, which is about the 25th of August, somewhere right in there. Start putting up some of the new murals, and then it takes about 2 to 3 months, depending upon our work staff and weather conditions, to get the new corn murals up there.
Why should you visit the Corn Palace?
It's a good building. It's good for our community. The murals are unique, and they are part of our culture. They're grains, they're weeds, and they're what we do here.
When most people ask, what is it? We basically talk about what the facility does, as that civic arena and everything else, but then saying, now envision that same thing decorated as a palace with big domes on top, and 2 sides of your building completely decorated in corn and with themes that change every year. And some get some idea of saying, okay, but how big are these murals? And when you start saying, well, the murals, some of the sizes are 12 feet tall and 30 feet wide, and we've got 12 of these of different shapes, they start to realize that you're decorating a lot of area and how much work it would be. And then when they get here, it's the best part, because there's so many different reactions just saying, I never envisioned something like this. Now, do you put the corn on there and paint it each year, or what do you do? But when you can tell them it's all naturally grown and go through the process of the decorating, that's when they get the true appreciation of the Corn Palace.
So if you are ever driving down Interstate 90 and looking for bushels of fun, handcrafted architecture, or something simply amazing, pull off at exit 332 and follow the signs. They will lead you to 6th and Main, where you will find the world's one and only Corn Palace in Mitchell, South Dakota.